All right, in this video, we're going to go ahead and tackle something that is a little bit different than the previous video that we looked at, but we're going to factor quadratics in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c, where a is equal to 1. So what we're basically saying is that when we have, if we look at all four of these examples, is that if I have a right here, some number in front of x squared, there is a invisible 1 in front of there, okay? Each one of those. So that means is that there's nothing in front of there. And so when we have these, our aim is to break them into two binomials. And it is kind of like the reverse claw technique or the reverse FOIL technique, if you will. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to navigate this. So the first thing that we do when we have these guys right here is that we need to take a look at these two numbers, okay? This guy and this guy. And so what we have to do is that we're going to put this number up top, and we're going to take that number below, and then we're going to say what two numbers multiply to and multiply to 6, and then we finish that thought over here and add to 5, okay, which is going to be this guy right here. So we think about those numbers, and sometimes it's good to list them out where we could say, okay, well, 6 and I'm sorry, 6, couldn't get the pen right, and times 1, okay, and that shouldn't be a negative sign there. Let me rewrite that. Pen's kind of acting up. So 6 times 1 and 2 times 3 are the only two combinations where I could go ahead and get 6. But they have to add to 5. So 6 plus 1 is 7, so that's not going to match there, but 6 plus 3 is 5. And therefore, my magic numbers are going to go ahead and be a 2 and a 3. So what we do then is that once we have those numbers, is that we set things up like this. We make 2 sets of parentheses, and we're going to put the x in front, okay? So that whatever is right here, okay, we put just a single one. This is x squared, so we're going to put an x here and an x here. And then we look at the numbers that I got over in this area, the green ones, and I'm going to put there plus 2 and plus 3. And that is that guy all factored out, okay? So I'm going to put a box around it, but let's, like in the other videos, check our solutions to make sure that we did it correct. When we multiply it all back out, then we know we're correct if we got what we started with. So let's do that out. So I get x times x, which is x squared, x times 3, which is 3x, 2 times x, which is 2x, and 2 times 3, which is 6. Collect like terms in the middle, and that gives us x squared plus 5x plus 6. And lo and behold, we got this, which is matches this. So we know that our factored part right here is correct. Okay. So let's go ahead and take a look at another one that has some negatives in it and how we will navigate that. Okay, sliding on over to the next one. Let's take a look at what lies in wait for us. So now we have some negatives here, and we're going to go ahead and start off the exact same way. Okay. And we're going to take the last number and its sign in front of it, which is a negative, and put that up top. And this guy right here, and put that on bottom. Okay. And then we're going to ask ourselves the same questions. All right, and those questions are, what two numbers multiply to a negative 30 and add to a negative 13? Okay. So in this case, we got some negatives going back and forth, and so it might not be always the most clearest path as the previous one where everything was positive. But let's take a look at how we can do this. First of all, I just like to go ahead and ignore the sign of the 30, which is a negative, and just kind of list some things that go ahead and multiply to 30. Okay, and so trying to get these all organized here. 1 second. Okay, so here we go. Now, here is just a little bit of a game plan here. We know that if two numbers are going to multiply to something negative, we know that it has to be a positive times a negative. So that means is that one of these numbers is going to have to be a negative and one of them is going to have to be a positive when I add them up. Okay. So I'm going to just scan down there and I look at a 1 and a 30. If one of those have to be negative and I were to add them up, I couldn't get a negative 13. That's not going to go ahead and work. Okay. And if I were to look at this, the 3 and the 10 look pretty good. Like, say, if I were to say the following, say, if I were to guess a negative 3 times 10, that would give me a negative 30. But if I were to go a negative 3 plus 10, that would give me a positive 7, which wouldn't match this part on bottom. This part would match, but this part would not. And let me go ahead and just erase that part out real quick. And say if I were to make the 10 negative and see if that would make a difference. So if I had 3 times a negative 10, that would give me the negative 30 up top, which we like. But if I had 3 plus a negative 10, that would give me a negative 7, which wouldn't match what's on bottom. So I know that those are not going to be the combination that I'm looking for. However, if I were to look at this guy right here, I can say the following, all right? And actually, let me put it over in the X part, is that if I were to go a 2 and a 15 here, I know that one of those has to go ahead and be negative. And I'm going to make the 15 negative and see if this works out, okay? So 2 times a negative 15 is a negative 30, okay? But, I should say, and 2 plus a negative 15 is a negative 13. So since those both check, right, this matches this matches this, these are the numbers that I'm looking for. And so I'm going to set up my parentheses like we practiced in the last problem. And including the sign, I'm going to put a positive 2 right here and a negative 15 right here. Okay. And I'm going to say that that is my factored solution. However, I want to check, and it's good just to check it out, especially if you're taking a test or something like that. You can always see if you're right ahead of time. So if I multiply these back out, I go x times x, which is x squared, x times a negative 15, which is negative 15x, 2 times x, which is 2x, and 2 times a negative 15, which is a negative 30. These can be collected, those terms, and that's going to give me x squared minus 13x minus 30, which we know matches that. So we know that this part is correct. Okay, so let's take a look at another one and see how the strategy differs from problem to problem. So here we go. I got this guy right here, and I'm going to start off with my template. And I'll take this last number, which is a positive 10, and I'll put it up here. And this middle number, which is a negative 7. And from there, I'm going to go ahead and ask the same questions. Okay, so like we practiced, once more, what two numbers multiply to 10? And add to a negative 7. So sometimes I list the numbers off to the side, and if you're already seeing where this is going, you can always just go ahead and throw some numbers into that X there and see if they work out. If not, erase them and start again. Okay, so here is a little bit of strategy. I know that this is going to go ahead and be a positive. So that means is that the two numbers that I'm multiplying have to both either be positive or negative, because a negative times a negative is a positive, if we remember. But this right here is a negative. So that means is that the two numbers, okay, are probably going to both be negatives, because when I multiply them, it's going to be 10, and when I add them, it's going to be negative, okay? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the numbers 2 and 5, because those look like, all right, so 2 times 5, if we notice, okay, just leaving it positive for a moment, 2 times 5 is 10, but 2 plus 5 is a positive 7. That ain't going to work. So we need to, I'm going to try these both as negatives. And so this will be a negative 2 times a negative 5 is positive 10. A negative 2 plus a negative 5 is going to give me a negative 7. So I know that that is going to go ahead and be the numbers I'm looking for. So I drop those in like this. Okay. And that is my proposed solution. I'm going to check it real quick to make sure that I'm right. And it just helps you visualize the whole process when you check it out. Okay. So x times x is x squared. X times a negative 2 is a negative 2x. Negative 5 times x is a negative 5x. And a negative 5 times a negative 2 is a positive 10. So we go ahead and collect those, and that gives us x squared minus 7x plus 10. And once more, you can see it's the same as where we started from, so it's correct. All right. So the last one we're looking at is going to be this guy right here, and it looks like, all right, here we go. Business as usual, where I go ahead and I have my 5 from this and my 3 right there. Now, here's the problem, is that what two numbers multiply to 5? Well, those are only 1 and 5. Now, we're looking at this and we're trying to say, well, you know what? Trying to answer these questions once more. So when I look at this and I say, all right, well, what two numbers are going to multiply to this and add to this? And I go, 1 times 5 are the only two numbers that are going to multiply to 5. And you can see either I'm adding or subtracting. There's no way I can get a 3 from this. So in this case, and this happens, it's just like we cannot factor. And that's okay. That happens sometimes. And that is the solution. Sometimes the solution is that you just can't do it. All right. And so that's that. And we're going to go ahead and take a look at, in the next video, something that is going to develop on this concept and see what happens when this business of A, when it's not 1, that is that what happens when there's numbers in front of those x squareds. So, all right, that's how you do that. Now I'll see you in the next video.